The hospital room was heavy with sadness, as 8-year-old Sophie lay motionless in her bed machines, beeping steadily in the background. Doctors had begun to lose hope after 3 months of the little girl showing no response since the accident. But then, Max, a tiny golden retriever puppy with mismatched eyes, wobbled into the room, making the medical staff chuckle at his clumsy determination. If you believe in the healing power of animal love and want to witness moments that remind us why dogs are called angels with paws, please subscribe now to join our community that celebrates these incredible four-legged heroes. No one expected what happened next when Max placed his tiny paw on Sophie's hand, his warm brown eye and bright blue one fixed intently on her face, as if he could see something the doctors couldn't. And in that moment, something magical was about to unfold that would change everything the medical staff thought they knew about healing. 2 weeks earlier, Sarah Martinez stood in the city shelter's puppy section, watching the tiny golden retriever with fascination as a certified therapy dog trainer. For 20 years, she had never seen anything quite like him, his right eye a warm chocolate brown, his left a startling crystal blue, both filled with an intelligence that seemed far beyond his 8 weeks of life. "We found him in a cardboard box behind the supermarket," the shelter worker explained. "No note, no siblings, just this." Little guy with his unusual eyes, Sarah nodded, watching, as Max, what the shelter staff had named him because of his mighty determination to befriend everyone, approached each visitor to his pen with deliberate, gentle care. Most puppies bounced and tumbled, but Max moved with an almost prescribed purpose. What caught Sarah's attention most was his reaction to a crying child in the next aisle. Immediately, Max's ears perked up, his mismatched eyes focused in that direction, his tiny body tensing with concern. "He does that every time," the worker said softly. "It's like he can sense when someone's hurting." Sarah had seen many therapy dogs in her career, but something about this puppy called to her professional instincts. Max's medical charts showed him to be perfectly healthy despite his heterochromia, the condition that gave him his distinctive eyes. Some Native American tribes believed mismatched eyes meant the ability to see both this world and the spirit world. The shelter's veterinarian mentioned noticing Sarah's interest watching this little one. "I sometimes wonder if they were right." That afternoon, as Sarah filled out the adoption papers, she thought about the Children's Hospital, where she ran the therapy dog program they had. Never had a puppy before the program, typically used trained adult dogs. But everything about Max seemed to defy convention, his careful gentleness, his intuitive response to pain, his old soul. Wisdom housed in such a tiny body. "You're going to need special permission," her supervisor warned when Sarah proposed training Max as their youngest therapy dog candidate. "There are protocols, regulations." But as she showed him videos of Max's interactions at the shelter, his unique way of approaching those in distress, his incredible emotional intelligence, even the supervisor had to admit there was something extraordinary about this puppy. Training began immediately, Max proving to be unlike any puppy Sarah had ever worked with. Where other puppies needed constant correction, Max seemed to instinctively understand what was needed. His mismatched eyes focused intently on Sarah during every lesson, his small body perfectly still, as he absorbed each command, each guidance, each purpose. But it was during their first visit to a nursing home for preliminary socialization that Max's true gift revealed itself, ignoring the usual distractions that overwhelmed most puppies. He made his way directly to a resident who Sarah later learned had just received difficult news. Max sat quietly beside the woman's wheelchair, his different colored eyes fixed on her face until she began to smile. He's not just sensing physical pain, Sarah realized, watching Max work. He's sensing emotional pain too. This ability became more apparent with each training session, Max gravitating unerringly toward those who needed comfort the most. His presence bringing a peace that Sarah had never seen from even her most experienced therapy dogs. The hospital board remained skeptical when Sarah presented Max's case for early therapy certification. He's barely 12 weeks old, they argued. But then Max did something unprecedented during the meeting, sensing the chairman's hidden grief over a recent loss. He gently placed his paw on the man's hand, his mismatched eyes offering silent understanding, the chairman's professional facade crumbling in the face of such pure empathy. "There are some things that can't be explained by standard protocols," Sarah told the board as they watched their chairman openly weep while holding the tiny puppy. "Some healing doesn't follow our rules." The vote to approve Max's special certification was unanimous. His therapy dog vest, specially made to fit his small frame, his unique eyes quickly becoming legendary among the hospital staff, but it was during their training visits to the children's ward that Max showed his most remarkable abilities, gravitating toward the rooms with the most critical cases, the ones where hope was fading, where medical science had reached its limits, where families sat in silent vigil, his different colored eyes seeming to see past the machines, past the illness, past the fear to something deeper, something that needed his special kind of healing. "He's choosing them," one of the nurses observed, watching Max consistently return to certain rooms. "It's like he knows who needs him most." Sarah had noticed this too, the way Max would sometimes sit outside specific doors, whining softly until he was allowed to visit, how he seemed to know exactly how to position himself beside each child, whether they needed gentle activity or quiet presence. The staff began keeping records of Max's visits, noting changes in vital signs, emotional responses, family dynamics. "It's not just what he does," the head nurse explained to Sarah. "It's what happens after he leaves, the residual effect of his presence." The medical team couldn't explain it, but they couldn't deny it either. Something about this tiny puppy with mismatched eyes was changing their understanding of healing. Then came the day Max first encountered Sophie's room, the tiny puppy stopping abruptly in the hallway, both eyes fixed on her door with an intensity Sarah had never seen before, his whole body trembling, not with fear but with purpose. In there, his posture seemed to say, "That's where I need to be." Sarah checked the chart. 8-year-old Sophie Parker, 3 months in a coma after a car accident. "No response to treatment. She's not on our approved visit list," the floor nurse said. But Max was already sitting beside Sophie's door, his mismatched eyes pleading, his tiny tail wagging with determination. Sarah recognized this look, had seen it before when Max knew something they didn't, when his special sight revealed a need that transcended normal protocols. "Maybe," she suggested, "we should let him try." As they prepared to enter Sophie's room, Sarah felt something different in Max's energy. The puppy, who had already defied every convention about therapy dogs, seemed to be gathering himself for something important, something extraordinary. His brown eye and blue eye focused forward, his small body carrying himself with a dignity that belied his few weeks of life sometimes, Sarah thought, watching Max approach Sophie's bed with careful, deliberate steps. The greatest healing comes from the most unexpected sources. She couldn't know then that she was about to witness the beginning of a miracle, that this tiny puppy with his unusual eyes was about to challenge everything the medical community thought they knew about healing, about hope, about the mysterious bond between humans and animals. Max's mismatched eyes, fixed on Sophie's still face, seemed to hold all the wisdom of both worlds he was seeing. And in that moment, just before he placed his small paw on her hand, Sarah felt a shift in the air, felt the first whisper of something extraordinary beginning, felt the start of a journey that would change not just Sophie's life, but everything they understood about the power of love to heal what medicine alone could not touch. The steady beeping of medical monitors provided a mechanical rhythm to Sophie's room as Sarah and Max entered. With the floor nurse, Dr. Chen, Sophie's neurologist, had joined them, drawn by curiosity about the puppy he'd been hearing so much about. 3 months, he said quietly, checking Sophie's charts. No significant changes in brain activity, no voluntary responses. But Max wasn't listening, his mismatched eyes fixed intently on Sophie's still form. Sophie's parents, David and Maria Parker, looked up, hope and desperation warring in their tired eyes. They had tried everything. Experimental treatments, specialized therapies, even alternative medicine. Nothing had reached their daughter in the darkness where she drifted, a puppy. David asked, his voice catching. "They said he's different," Maria whispered, touching her husband's hand. "They said he sees things others don't." Max moved with deliberate purpose towards Sophie's bed, his tiny frame carrying a dignity that made even Dr. Chen fall silent. The puppy's different colored eyes seemed to glow in the fluorescent light, one brown, one blue, both focused entirely on Sophie's face. Sarah watched, holding her breath, as Max did something he'd never done before in all his training. He very gently pulled himself onto the chair beside Sophie's bed. "He shouldn't be able to do that," Sarah whispered to the nurse. "He's too small." But Max managed it perfectly, positioning himself exactly at Sophie's eye level, his mismatched eyes never leaving her face for a moment. Maria Parker gasped softly as Max lifted his tiny paw, placing it with incredible gentleness on Sophie's hand. The room holding its collective breath as they waited. The first change was subtle, so subtle. Dr. Chen might have missed it if he hadn't been staring at the monitors. Sophie's heart rate shifted ever so slightly, responding to Max's touch. "That's new," he murmured, making notes. "That's definitely new." Max's tail wagged once, as if acknowledging the doctor's observation, but his focus remained entirely on Sophie's. Sarah had seen Max work with other patients, had witnessed his extraordinary ability to connect with those in pain, but this was different. This was as if the tiny puppy was having a conversation. None of them could hear his brown eye and blue eye, somehow seeing past the machines, past the coma, past everything that separated Sophie from the waking world. "Look," Maria whispered, pointing at Sophie's hand where Max's paw rested. The fingers had moved, not much, just a tiny flutter, but in 3 months they hadn't moved at all. Dr. Chen was already documenting everything, his professional skepticism warring with what he was witnessing. "It could be involuntary," he cautioned. But his voice lacked conviction. Max began making a soft sound. Not quite a whine, not quite a purr. Something in between, something that seemed to resonate with the frequency of the medical equipment. David Parker, who hadn't cried since the accident, felt tears sliding down his cheeks as he watched this tiny puppy somehow reaching his daughter in ways all their advanced medical technology had failed to do. The neurological monitors began showing increased activity in areas of Sophie's brain that had been dormant since the accident. Dr. Chen moved quickly between screens, taking photographs, making notes, his scientific mind struggling to explain what he was seeing. "This is unprecedented," he muttered. "These patterns, these responses, they're unlike anything we've recorded before." Sarah noticed something else. Max's different colored eyes had taken on an almost luminous quality. The brown one warming like amber in sunlight, the blue one brightening like a summer sky she had worked with. Therapy dogs for 2 decades, but she had never seen anything like this, never witnessed such an intense, focused connection between animal and patient. More hospital staff began gathering at the door, drawn by the unusual monitor readings and the growing sense that something extraordinary was happening in room 214. Max remained absolutely still, maintaining his gentle contact with Sophie, his unique eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that seemed to transcend normal animal behavior. "There." One of the nurses pointed at Sophie's face, where a single tear had formed in the corner of her eye and was slowly trailing down her cheek in 3 months of coma. They had seen no emotional responses, no indication that Sophie was aware of anything happening around her. "But now she's crying," Maria sobbed. She knows he's here." Dr. Chen was rapidly documenting everything, pulling in additional monitoring equipment, calling for more detailed scans. Max seemed unconcerned by the growing commotion, his entire being focused on Sophie, as if they were the only two souls in the universe, his mismatched eyes holding secrets. Only he could see his presence creating a bridge between Sophie's world of darkness and the light of consciousness. The changes continued, subtle but undeniable. Sophie's breathing pattern shifted, becoming more natural, less mechanical. Her hand, where Max's paw rested, showed microscopic movements, her brain activity continuing to present patterns that defied conventionals. Medical understanding, it's like, Dr. Chen struggled to explain, like he's somehow finding pathways we didn't even know existed. Sarah watched in amazement as Max maintained his connection with Sophie for over an hour, his tiny body completely still, except for the occasional tail wag when the monitors showed particularly positive changes. She had known this puppy was special from the moment she saw him at the shelter, but this was beyond special. This was miraculous. Finally, Max turned those extraordinary eyes toward Sarah, a clear signal that the session needed to end for now. She stepped forward to help him down, but before she could reach him, Sophie's fingers definitely moved, curling ever so slightly around his paw. Dr. Chen nearly dropped his tablet in his rush to document this clear, voluntary response. "We'll bring him back tomorrow," Sarah promised, seeing the desperate hope in the Parkers' eyes. "Twice a day if Dr. Chen approves." The neurologist was still staring at his readings, shaking his head in wonder. "Approved," he said without hesitation. "Whatever this is, whatever he's doing, it's reaching her in ways we need to understand." As they left the room, Sarah noticed Max's energy had changed. The puppy seemed tired, but deeply satisfied, like someone who had accomplished something vital. His different colored eyes, heavy with what looked like wisdom. Beyond his few weeks of life, the hospital staff watched them go whispering among themselves about the miracle they had witnessed back. In her office, Sarah added detailed notes to Max's file trying to document the undocumentable. How do you describe in clinical terms the moment when love transcends medical science, when a puppy with mismatched eyes finds a path to healing that all human knowledge had missed, when hope returns to a room that had forgotten its name? The next morning, Max was up earlier than usual, sitting by the door, his unique eyes fixed on Sarah with clear purpose. He knew where he needed to be, knew what. He needed to do. The tiny puppy with extraordinary gifts had found his calling, had discovered the soul he was meant to help heal. Even the shelter staff, who had first noticed his special qualities, couldn't have imagined this. Dr. Chen had called an emergency meeting of the medical team to review the data from their first session. "I can't explain it," he admitted, showing them the brain activity patterns. "But I can't deny it either. Something happened in that room, something we need to understand." The hospital administration quickly approved daily visits protocol exceptions, anything that might help them unravel the mystery of Max and Sophie. Sarah gathered Max's therapy vest and equipment for their second visit, but watching him trot purposefully toward the elevator, his mismatched eyes bright with mission. She knew that whatever was happening between this extraordinary puppy and the little girl in room 214 went far beyond any medical protocol or scientific understanding. This was about love finding a way. This was about hope, getting a second chance. This was about a tiny puppy with unique eyes, teaching them all that sometimes the greatest healing comes through the heart rather than through medicine. As the morning sun painted gentle patterns across Sophie's hospital room, Max settled into what had become his special chair. His mismatched eyes focused on her face with the same intensity that had marked their first meeting 1 week ago. Sarah watched from her position by the door, amazed at how the tiny puppy had established such a precise routine, knowing exactly where to sit, how to position himself, how to reach Sophie. In her distant world, Dr. Chen had installed additional monitoring equipment, turning Sophie's room into a research station of sorts. "Look at this," he whispered to Sarah, pointing at one of the screens. Her brain activity changes the moment he walks in before he even touches her. It's like she knows he's here. The medical team had begun documenting every detail of Max's visits, creating charts and graphs that showed subtle but undeniable patterns. Maria Parker sat in her usual spot, carefully crocheting another blanket, her hands keeping busy while her heart watched for miracles. She had noticed something new this morning. Her breathing changes when he makes that sound, she observed as Max produced his special Sophie sound, that unique tone between a whine and a purr that he used only with her. It becomes deeper, more natural. The hospital staff had started timing their rounds to coincide with Max's visits, drawn by the peaceful atmosphere that settled over room 214, when the tiny puppy with different colored eyes took his position beside. Sophie nurses reported that even other patients seemed calmer during these times, as if Max's healing presence somehow radiated beyond the confines of Sophie's room. There, Sarah pointed as Sophie's fingers twitched against Max's paw. The movement, stronger than before, more purposeful. Dr. Chen quickly noted the time and readings. Her neural patterns are showing increased organization, he explained. It's as if he's somehow helping her brain rebuild its pathways. The scientist in him struggled to explain what the human in him was witnessing. Max's brown eye and blue eye seemed to glow with inner light. During these sessions, Sarah had begun photographing them documenting the subtle changes in their luminescence that corresponded with Sophie's responses. It's strongest when she shows signs of awareness, she noted in her journal, as if his eyes are somehow bridging two worlds David Parker had started. Arriving earlier for his visits, timing them to coincide with Max's morning sessions, the formerly skeptical father now sitting quietly watching the tiny puppy work his magic. I didn't believe at first, he admitted to Sarah, but now I think he sees her, really sees her, where we can't reach. Max's tail wagged once in apparent agreement, though his focus never left Sophie's face. The changes were subtle, but accumulating. Sophie's skin had gained more color. Her muscle tone was improving even without physical therapy. Her brain scans showed increasingly complex patterns of activity. Dr. Chen had called in specialists from other hospitals, creating a task force to study what he called the Max effect, their preliminary findings, causing excitement in the medical community. Watch this, Sarah demonstrated for the visiting neurologists as Max performed his newest routine, gently moving his paw from Sophie's hand to different pressure points on her arm, corresponding exactly with traditional acupressure locations. He's never been trained for this, she explained. He just started doing it naturally. The specialists exchanged amazed looks as Sophie's monitors responded to each touch. Maria had noticed other changes too. Her hair seems softer when he's here, she told Sarah, her face more relaxed. It's like he brings her closer to the surface. The mother's intuition combined with Max's extraordinary perception created moments when everyone in the room could almost feel Sophie's presence growing stronger, more immediate, more aware. Max's reputation had spread throughout the hospital. Other departments requesting visits during his breaks from Sophie, but the tiny puppy remained focused on his primary mission, accepting other interactions briefly, but always returning to room 214 with eager determination, his different colored eyes holding secrets and wisdom that continued to amaze everyone who witnessed his work. Dr. Chen had begun recording Max's unique Sophie sound, analyzing its frequency patterns. It's extraordinary, he reported. The sound operates at a frequency that exactly matches certain therapeutic brainwave patterns we try to achieve with advanced medical equipment. Sarah wasn't surprised. She had long since learned to trust Max's instincts. His ancient wisdom housed in such a young body, the hospital board had called another meeting, this time to discuss creating a dedicated research program around Max's work with Sophie. We're seeing things that challenge our understanding of consciousness, of healing, of the connection between beings. The chief of medicine admitted, we need to document this properly, study it, understand it, if we can. Sarah noticed how Max's energy would shift. During his sessions, sometimes intensely focused, sometimes gentler, more playful, as if he were somehow communicating with Sophie on multiple levels. He adapts to what she needs, she explained to the research team. Moment by moment, he seems to know exactly what approach will help her most. The scientists added another category to their growing list of observations. One morning, about 10 days into their sessions, Max did something new, bringing his face close to Sophie's, his mismatched eyes, almost glowing as he gently touched his nose to her cheek. The monitors exploded with activity, showing unprecedented levels of brain response. "There," Dr. Chen exclaimed, pointing to the patterns. "That's voluntary response. Those are conscious recognition. Patterns!" Maria dropped her crochet hook, tears streaming down her face as she watched Sophie's lips curve slightly upward, the first hint of a smile they had seen since the accident. Max's tail wagged with obvious joy, his different colored eyes bright with what looked like triumph. The tiny puppy somehow knowing that this breakthrough was significant. The news spread quickly through the hospital staff, gathering at the door to witness what was happening. In room 214, Max maintained his position. His gentle presence, his healing connection, even as the excitement built around him, Sarah watched in wonder as the puppy she had discovered in a shelter continued to reshape their understanding of what was possible. "We need to document everything," Dr. Chen insisted, setting up additional cameras to capture every detail of Max's interactions, every movement, every sound, every response. "There's something profound happening here, something that could change our whole approach to coma recovery." Sarah nodded, but her attention was on Max's eyes, the way they seemed to hold both Sophie's past and her future in their different colored depths. David had begun talking more during the sessions, sharing stories about Sophie's life before the accident. And Sarah noticed how Max's ears would prick up at certain details, his tail wagging as if he were somehow collecting these pieces of Sophie, building a bridge between her past and present. He's mapping her? She realized, creating a path for her to follow home. The hospital had started receiving inquiries from around the country as word spread about the tiny therapy puppy with mismatched eyes who was achieving what advanced medical technology could not. Max remained unchanged by the attention, his focus entirely on Sophie, his presence both extraordinary and somehow completely natural, as if this had been his purpose all along. Maria had taken to singing Sophie's favorite songs during Max's visits, and the monitors showed how both Sophie's brain activity and Max's breathing would synchronize with the music, creating a harmony of healing that left the medical team scrambling to document and understand. "It's like they're dancing together," Sarah observed, "somewhere between here and there, between now and then." As another session drew to a close, Max gently withdrew his paw from Sophie's hand, his different colored eyes heavy with the effort of building bridges between worlds. Sarah helped him down from his chair, watching as he gave Sophie one last look before heading to his rest area. "He knows," she thought. "He knows exactly what he's doing, exactly what she needs, exactly how to bring her back to us." Dr. Chen reviewed the day's data, adding to the growing collection of evidence that something miraculous was happening in room 214. "We're watching the impossible become possible," he told Sarah. "We're seeing healing that defies explanation." Sarah smiled, watching Max curl up for his nap, his unique eyes closing, his tiny body resting, but his presence still somehow filling the room with hope. And in her bed, Sophie continued to show small but increasing signs of awareness. Her journey back, guided by a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes who had somehow found a way to reach through darkness, through silence, through all the barriers that medicine could not breach, bringing with him a healing that transcended science, a love that defied explanation, and a hope that grew stronger with each precious moment they shared. The morning started differently. Max unusually restless, As Sarah drove to the hospital, his mismatched eyes brighter, more intense than she had ever seen them, his tiny body trembling with what seemed like anticipation rather than anxiety. Something's coming, she thought. Watching him practically pull her toward the elevator, his therapy vest barely containing his urgent energy. Room 214 was already busy. Dr. Chen had arrived early, accompanied by 2 neurologists from Johns Hopkins who had flown in specifically to observe Max's work with Sophie Maria and David Parker. Looked up hopefully as Max entered, his different colored eyes immediately fixing on Sophie with an intensity that made everyone in the room fall silent. His eyes, Maria whispered. They're glowing. She wasn't exaggerating. Max's brown eye seemed to burn with amber fire, his blue eye electric with inner light. As he took his position beside Sophie's bed without waiting for his usual assistance, the tiny puppy pulled himself up to his spot with unprecedented urgency, his whole being focused on Sophie's face. The monitors began registering activity before Max even touched her, showing patterns Dr. Chen had never seen before. "This is extraordinary," he murmured to his colleagues. "Look at these theta waves, they're organizing themselves in completely new configurations." The visiting neurologists leaned forward, their skepticism fading as they watched the readings climb. Max made his special Sophie sound, but it was different. Today, deeper, more resonant somehow, filling the room with vibrations that seemed to make the very air shimmer. Sarah felt goosebumps rise on her arms as she watched Max gently place both paws on Sophie's hand, his mismatched eyes never leaving her face, his whole body glowing with purpose. David Parker had been filming these sessions on his phone, documenting every moment of his daughter's journey. But now his hand shook so badly he had to set the phone down. "Something's happening," he whispered, his voice catching, "something big." The medical team crowded around the monitors as the readings continued to spike in patterns that defied their understanding. Max began making a new sound, one they had never heard before, a sort of melodic humming that seemed to resonate with the frequency of Sophie's brain activity. The visiting neurologists scrambled to record it, their faces showing amazement as the monitors responded with unprecedented synchronization. "He's matching her neural frequencies," one of them exclaimed, "but that's impossible." And then it happened. Sophie's fingers curled around Max's paw, not just a twitch, not just a reflex, but a deliberate, conscious movement, her hand holding onto him as if he were a lifeline, pulling her. Back from some distant shore, the monitors erupted with activity, Dr. Chen calling for additional equipment as Sophie's brain lit up with consciousness. "Sophie?" Maria's voice trembled as she reached for her daughter's other hand. "Baby, can you hear us?" Max's different-colored eyes seemed to pulse with light. As Sophie's own eyes began to flutter, the first voluntary movement they had seen since the accident. The room held its collective breath as her eyelids struggled to open. Sarah watched, in awe as Max maintained his connection, his tiny body radiating a strength that seemed far beyond his physical size, his unique eyes now so bright they cast shadows on the wall. The visiting neurologists had abandoned any pretense of scientific detachment, openly weeping as they witnessed something that transcended their medical understanding. Sophie's eyes opened slowly, focusing first on Max's face, her gaze meeting his different colored eyes in a moment of connection so profound it seemed to stop time itself. "Hi," she whispered, her voice rough from months of silence, but clear, unmistakable, alive. Max's tail wagged, once his eyes somehow glowing even brighter. As Sophie's hand tightened around his paw, the room erupted in chaos. Maria and David sobbing, Dr. Chen calling for more staff, the neurologists trying to document everything. But Sophie remained focused only on Max, her eyes never leaving his, as if they were sharing some profound understanding, some deep communication that existed beyond words, beyond medicine, beyond the boundaries of normal healing. The puppy. Sophie managed to say, "He called me, he showed me the way back." Max made his Sophie sound again, softer now, gentler, more like a lullaby. Maria clutched David's And as their daughter spoke again, "He has special eyes, so I could see him in the dark." The medical team exchanged glances, this statement adding another layer to the mystery they were witnessing. Sarah noticed how Max maintained his position, even as doctors and nurses flooded the room, checking Sophie's vitals, running quick tests, confirming what they were seeing. The tiny puppy remained steady, his different colored eyes still connected with Sophie's, his presence anchoring her as she adjusted to consciousness, his love creating a safe space for her return. Dr. Chen was rapidly documenting everything, his voice excited but professional, pupillary response, normal voluntary movement, increasing cognitive function, immediate full consciousness, without the usual confusion. But his scientific observations couldn't capture the real miracle unfolding in room 214, couldn't measure the power of love that had reached across the boundaries of consciousness. Sophie's smile grew stronger as she reached up with her free hand to touch Max's face. "You're real," she whispered. "I thought you were just an angel." Max's tail wagged again, his mismatched eyes soft now, but still glowing with inner light as Sophie's fingers gently touched each one. "One eye to see me here," she said. "One eye to see me there." The visiting neurologists were already talking about papers, about studies, about revolutionary approaches to coma recovery. But Sarah watched Max, knowing that what they had witnessed went beyond science, beyond study, beyond explanation. The tiny puppy with extraordinary eyes had simply done what love does, had reached out, had connected, had brought light to darkness as the excitement continued to swirl around them. Sophie kept hold of Max's paw, her eyes growing heavy with natural sleep so different from the stillness of her coma. Max maintained his vigil, his different colored eyes watching over her as she drifted off her mother's hand, stroking her hair, her father's tears. Falling unchecked, her monitors showing normal, healthy sleep patterns. "We need to document everything," Dr. Chen was saying. "Every detail, every reading, every observation." But Sarah's attention was on Max, watching as the glow in his eyes slowly dimmed, not fading, but settling like sunlight after a storm. The tiny puppy, clearly tired, but deeply satisfied, his mission, not finished, but forever changed. Maria couldn't stop touching Sophie's face, checking that she was real, that this was real, that their daughter had truly returned. He brought her back. She kept saying, "That precious puppy with his special eyes, he really brought her back." David nodded, too overwhelmed for words, his hand clutching his phone, which had captured everything the moment. Their world had started again as the morning turned to afternoon and the initial excitement began to settle. Sarah helped Max down from his chair for a much-needed rest, but not before Sophie opened her eyes, once more reaching for him. "Thank you," she whispered. And in that moment, Max's eyes glowed one final time, his brown eye warm as love, his blue eye bright as hope, both filled with a wisdom and joy that reminded everyone in room 214 that some miracles come with paws, some angels have fur, and some healing transcends everything we think we know about the power of love to light the way home. The hospital conference room buzzed with excitement as doctors from around the country gathered to review the data from Sophie's breakthrough. Dr. Chen stood before a wall of monitors displaying brain scans, vital statistics, and video recordings of Max's sessions. Sarah sat quietly in the back, Max curled at her feet, his mismatched eyes watching with seeming understanding as his work became the focus of intense scientific scrutiny. What we're seeing defies conventional medical understanding. Dr. Chen began pointing to a series of neural activity patterns. These readings coincide exactly with the puppy's different vocalizations, particularly what we're calling the Sophie sound. The assembled specialists leaned forward, studying the correlation between Max's unique sounds and Sophie's brain response patterns. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, a leading neurologist from Mayo Clinic, raised her hand. "What about the eye phenomenon?" she asked, "the reported luminescence during critical moments." Sarah unconsciously reached down to touch Max's head, remembering the extraordinary glow that had emanated from his different colored eyes during Sophie's awakening. "We have documented evidence," Dr. Chen confirmed, bringing up David Parker's video footage. The recording played, showing Max's eyes growing increasingly bright. As Sophie approached consciousness, the brown eye warming like amber, the blue eye electric with energy, the room fell silent as they watched the moment of breakthrough. Sophie's first words are clear reference to Max's eyes guiding her back. "One eye to see me here," her voice whispered from the screen. "One eye to see me there." "We've analyzed the spectral components of the eye illumination," a research physicist explained, bringing up detailed charts. The frequencies matched known therapeutic wavelengths used in experimental consciousness studies. But Sarah noticed how Max's tail wagged slightly at Sophie's voice, even on recording his connection to her transcending the clinical analysis. Meanwhile, in Sophie's room, the young girl was making remarkable progress, her recovery defying every medical expectation. "It's like my brain remembers faster when Max is here," she told the rehabilitation team as the tiny puppy sat beside her bed during physical therapy, his different colored eyes tracking her movements, his presence somehow making impossible tasks manageable. Dr. Chen had established a dedicated research protocol tracking every aspect of Max's interactions, not just with Sophie, but with other patients who had begun receiving brief visits. "The effect is strongest with Sophie," he noted, "but we're seeing statistically significant improvements in all patients he encounters." The data was beginning to show patterns that suggested Max's healing influence extended beyond individual contacts. Era shared her observations from the shelter. "He showed these abilities from the beginning," she explained to the research team. "The way he responded to distress, his extraordinary empathy, his unique vocalizations." They added her notes to the growing database of information, trying to understand how a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes had revolutionized their understanding of healing. The hospital's chief of medicine had called in experts in animal cognition, veterinary neurology, and even quantum physics, attempting to create a theoretical framework for what they were witnessing. The dual-colored eyes might be more than a genetic anomaly. One researcher suggested they could indicate a unique neurological structure, allowing him to perceive and interact with consciousness in unprecedented ways. Sophie's own testimony became crucial to their understanding. "When I was in the dark," she explained, drawing pictures of her experience, "I could see his eyes first. The brown one felt warm like home. The blue one felt like a path, like it could show me the way back." The medical team pored over her accounts, comparing them with other cases of coma recovery, finding patterns that challenged their understanding of consciousness. Max remained surprisingly cooperative during the various tests they ran, allowing them to measure his brain activity, record his vocalizations, and document the energy fields that seemed to surround him during healing sessions. "It's as if he understands the importance of what we're studying," Dr. Morgan observed, watching the tiny puppy position himself perfectly. For another set of measurements, the research began. Attracting attention from beyond the medical community, quantum physicists became interested in the energy patterns generated during Max's sessions. Consciousness researchers started developing new theories about the nature of awareness and healing. "We're looking at a paradigm shift," Dr. Chen admitted during one presentation, "in how we understand the connection between beings." Sarah found herself becoming part of the research team, her experience with therapy dogs, and her special connections to Max providing valuable insights. "There's something about his intention," she explained during one session. "It's not just what he does, it's how completely he focuses on making that connection." The scientists added another category to their studies, examining the role of directed consciousness in healing. Sophie's continued recovery provided ongoing data, her brain scans showing unprecedented patterns of neural regeneration, It's like he activated healing pathways we didn't even know existed, Dr. Chen explained to his colleagues, and now her brain is using those pathways to rebuild itself. The implications for treatment of other coma patients were revolutionary, leading to new research protocols. Max's daily schedule now included both his critical time with Sophie and carefully monitored sessions with other patients, his different colored eyes bringing hope to more families, his gentle presence changing the entire atmosphere of the hospital. It's not just the direct healing, one nurse observed. It's like he reminds us all of the power of love to transform. The research team documented everything. The way Max's eyes would glow with varying intensity depending on the needs of each patient, the specific frequencies of his different vocalizations, the energy fields that formed during healing sessions. We're mapping the science of love. Dr. Morgan said one afternoon watching Max work trying to understand how pure compassion becomes physical healing, Sophie's own. Healing seemed to accelerate when she began participating in the research, explaining to the doctors what she could remember about Max's presence during her coma. His eyes were like lights in the darkness, she said, but more than that, they were like windows showing me two different ways to be alive. The neurologists exchanged glances, adding her insights to their growing understanding as the research continued. Max's abilities seemed to develop further, his healing presence becoming more refined, more focused, the tiny puppy with extraordinary eyes, teaching the medical community things they had never imagined about the connection between consciousness, compassion, and healing. He's not just a subject of study, Dr. Chen admitted one evening. He's becoming our teacher. Sarah watched it all unfold, remembering that first day at the shelter when she had noticed something special in a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes now. As she observed Max moving purposefully between research, sessions, and healing work, his different colored eyes glowing with ancient wisdom and modern miracle. She understood that some things transcend scientific explanation. Some healing comes from a place beyond medicine. Some love changes not just lives, but our very understanding of what life can be, and through it all, Max remained somehow both extraordinary and completely natural. His brown eye warm with earthly love, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom, both focused entirely on the work of healing, both showing the medical community that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come not through technology, but through the simple, profound power of a heart dedicated to helping others find their way home. Sunrise painted the hospital corridors in soft gold as Max trotted purposefully toward Sophie's room, his mismatched eyes bright with mission, his tiny paws moving with the confidence of one who knows exactly where he belongs. Sarah followed, watching as patients, staff, and visitors stopped to smile at the small puppy who had become the hospital's miracle worker, some reaching down to touch him gently for luck. Sophie sat up in bed waiting, her recovery continuing to defy every medical timeline. Her physical therapist had just finished commenting on her extraordinary progress. "It's those morning sessions with Max," Sophie explained as the tiny puppy took his place beside her. "When he's here, I feel like I can do anything." Her hands reached for him, his different colored eyes meeting hers in their special way of communicating. "Watch this," Sophie said proudly, demonstrating her newest achievement, picking up a small ball with fingers that just weeks ago had been motionless. Max's tail wagged encouragingly, his brown eye warm with earthly pride, his blue eyes sparkling with celestial joy. "He knows exactly when to push me and when to let me rest," Sophie told Sarah. "It's like he can see inside my mind." Dr. Chen arrived with his morning rounds, accompanied by two new specialists, their skepticism visibly fading as they watched Max guide Sophie through what had become their morning ritual, the puppy's unique vocalizations synchronizing perfectly with Sophie's breathing, her brain scans showing patterns of activity that matched his sounds. "He's conducting a symphony of healing," Dr. Chen explained, orchestrating her recovery at a cellular level. What amazed the medical team most was how Max had begun anticipating Sophie's needs, often shifting position or changing his approach, seconds before their monitor showed she required it. "It's like he exists slightly ahead of our timeline," one of the neurologists observed, "seeing what's needed before our instruments can detect it." Sarah wasn't surprised. She had long since learned to trust Max's extraordinary perceptions. Ophi's morning physical therapy had become a favorite gathering spot for hospital staff, watching in wonder as the tiny puppy with mismatched eyes helped her achieve what should have been impossible. "Step by step," Sophie would say, echoing Max's encouraging tail wags as she pushed through challenging exercises. His presence somehow making the difficult manageable, the impossible achievable. "Tell them about the dreams," Sophie urged during one session, and Sarah leaned forward with interest as the young girl described how Max appeared in her sleep, his different colored eyes guiding her through the healing process. "The brown eye shows me where I am," Sophie explained, "and the blue eye shows me where I can be. It's like having a map to getting better." Other patients had begun reporting similar experiences during their briefer sessions with Max children in the cancer ward, talking about healing dreams, elderly patients in rehabilitation, describing visions of recovery, all mentioning his extraordinary eyes and the way they seemed to bridge the gap between current challenges and future healing. "He's rewriting the rules of recovery," Dr. Chen admitted, reviewing the growing collection of testimonials. The physical therapy team had officially incorporated Max into their program, creating specialized exercises that worked in harmony with his natural healing abilities. "It's like he conducts energy," the lead therapist explained, watching Max guide Sophie through a particularly challenging balance exercise. "When he's present, patients can do things that should be physically impossible for their condition," Sarah had started, documenting the subtle changes in Max's techniques, how his approaches varied depending on each patient's needs, the way his different colored eyes seemed to adjust their glow to match the type of healing required. "He's developing his gifts," she realized, becoming more refined, more focused in how he uses his abilities. Dr. Chen's research team added her observations to their expanding study. Sophia's own healing had begun to influence others, her room becoming a gathering place for patients seeking hope. Her story of Max's guidance through the darkness, inspiring those facing their own challenges. "If a puppy with special eyes could find me in the dark," she would tell them, "imagine what else is possible." Max would wag his tail gently, at these moments his mismatched eyes glowing with quiet pride. The hospital board had officially designated Max as their first therapeutic presence guide, creating a new category to describe his unique role. Sarah watched as her tiny shelter puppy, with extraordinary eyes, transformed the very nature of healing in the hospital, his influence spreading far beyond individual sessions, touching everyone who witnessed his work. "It's not just about getting better anymore," Sophie explained to a young patient struggling with rehabilitation. "It's about believing in magic that looks like science and science that feels like magic." Max's different colored eyes seemed to sparkle at her words, as if confirming that some healing transcends traditional boundaries. "Some miracles wear fur, and some angels come with paws." Dr. Chen's research team had begun mapping what they called the Max effect, documenting how his presence created ripples of healing throughout the hospital. "It's like he generates a field of possibility," one researcher observed, "where patients begin to achieve outcomes that defy medical probability." Sarah thought about the shelter workers' words about Max's mismatched eyes and their connection to different worlds. Sophie's recovery had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations, her progress becoming a beacon of hope for other families. "Watch his eyes," she would tell them. "The brown one sees where you hurt, the blue one sees where you're going." Max would sit quietly. During these moments, his tiny presence somehow filling the room with possibility, his different colored eyes holding wisdom that transcended his few weeks of life. Hospital's atmosphere had transformed morning rounds, now accompanied by the sound of hope. As Max made his way through the corridors, his therapy vest bearing both his official title and the unofficial nickname patients had given him, Guardian of Light, Sarah had watched him grow into this role, his puppy energy focused into purpose, his natural gifts honed into healing art. He showed me how to be brave, Sophie told a group of medical students studying her case, by being exactly who he is, special eyes and all. Max's tail wagged at her words, his brown eye glowing with earthly warmth, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom, both focused on the girl who had become not just his patient, but his partner in showing the world what healing could truly be. Another successful therapy session concluded. Sarah watched. Max gently touched his nose to Sophie's hand, their special way of saying, "Well done." The tiny puppy who had once been left in a cardboard box had become something extraordinary, not just a therapy dog, not just a medical breakthrough, but a bridge between worlds, showing everyone who witnessed his work that some healing comes through love, some miracles wear fur, and some angels have mismatched eyes that see both where we are and where we can be. Sophie's laughter filled the room as Max performed their victory dance, his unique celebration when she mastered a new skill, his different colored eyes dancing with joy, his tiny body radiating the pure happiness of one who knows exactly why they were born, exactly what they were meant to do, and exactly how much love can transform when it comes wrapped in fur, guided by special eyes, and delivered with the endless dedication of a heart that knows no boundaries. The hospital auditorium was packed with medical professionals from around the world as Dr. Chen presented his findings on what the international medical community had begun calling the Max Protocol. Sarah sat in the front row, the tiny puppy with mismatched eyes curled in her lap, his presence drawing constant glances from the assembled doctors who had traveled thousands of miles to understand the miracle they had been hearing about. Conventional medicine cannot fully explain what we're witnessing. Dr. Chen began as videos played behind him, showing Max's work with Sophie and other patients. The puppy's different colored eyes appear to correlate with distinct healing frequencies. Brain scans filled the screen showing the now familiar patterns that occurred during Max's sessions, one eye resonating with current physical state, one eye apparently connecting with potential recovery states. In the third row, Sophie sat with her parents, now fully recovered and serving as living proof of Max's extraordinary abilities. It's not just about healing the body, she explained during the question period. His eyes help you find your way back to yourself. Max's tail wagged gently at her voice, his brown eye glowing with earthly warmth, his blue eye sparkling with celestial wisdom. Researchers from major institutions presented their analysis of Max's unique vocalizations. The frequencies match healing patterns we've observed in advanced meditation practitioners, a neuroscientist from Harvard explained, but with unprecedented precision and effectiveness. Sarah watched as Max lifted his head. During this explanation, his different colored eyes seeming to confirm the scientific observations. What we're seeing, Dr. Morgan added, challenges our fundamental understanding of consciousness and healing. She showed clips of Max working with various patients, his eyes changing luminescence according to each person's needs. He appears to perceive and interact with levels of consciousness our instruments are only beginning to detect. The audience leaned forward, fascinated by the footage of Max's eyes glowing during critical healing moments. Between presentations, medical professionals crowded around Sarah and Max, eager to witness his abilities firsthand. His eyes. One doctor gasped as Max turned to look at her. They really do glow? Sarah had grown used to this reaction, but she never tired of seeing how Max's gentle presence could transform even the most skeptical scientists into believers. Sophie had become an integral part of the research team, sharing her unique perspective on Max's healing abilities. When you're lost in the dark, she told the assembled doctors, you need different kinds of light to find your way home. His brown eye shows you where you are. His blue eye shows you where you can be. The medical professionals scribbled notes, their scientific mindsets grappling with the profound simplicity of her explanation. Dr. Chen presented data from other hospitals that had begun incorporating elements of the Max protocol. Even without Max's direct presence, patients show improved outcomes when we apply the frequencies we've recorded from his vocalizations. But everyone knew the results were strongest with Max himself, his tiny presence somehow catalyzing healing in ways that technology alone couldn't match. We're seeing a revolution in our understanding of recovery, Dr. Morgan explained, showing comparative studies, particularly in cases involving consciousness and neural pathway regeneration. Videos played showing patients responding to recordings of Max's Sophie sound, their brain patterns shifting to match the healing frequencies he naturally produced. During breaks, Max made his rounds through the auditorium, his different colored eyes meeting each person's gaze with extraordinary awareness. Sarah watched as skeptical expressions transformed into wonder, as the tiny puppy seemed to know exactly who needed his attention. Most witch doctors were struggling with difficult cases, which ones carried the heaviest burdens. It's not just about the physical healing, Sophie explained to a group of neurologists gathering around her during lunch. Max helps you remember who you are beneath the illness, beneath the injury. Her words resonated through the room as Max demonstrated his ability. Sensing a doctor in distress and going to her, his mismatched eyes glowing with compassion as she broke down crying about a patient. She had lost the afternoon sessions focused on the technological attempts to measure and replicate Max's healing presence. We can record the frequencies, a biomedical engineer admitted, but there's something about his live interaction, something about those extraordinary eyes that transcends our current understanding. Sarah nodded, remembering how the shelter worker had spoken about Max's eyes seeing different worlds. Quantum physicists had joined the research team attempting to explain how Max's different colored eyes seemed to bridge multiple states of consciousness. The dual chromatic presentation might indicate an ability to perceive and interact with parallel healing potentials, one theorist suggested, but Sophie smiled, knowing that sometimes the simplest explanations were the most profound. He sees with the eyes of love. She said, both what is and what can be. As the symposium continued, Max's influence spread beyond the medical presentations, doctors sharing stories of how their entire approach to healing had shifted after witnessing his work. We're remembering the heart of medicine, one veteran surgeon admitted. The part that knows healing is more than just science. Sarah watched Max's tail wag gently at these words, his mission extending beyond individual healing to transforming the very nature of medical care. The research team had begun documenting what they called the Max effect radius, measuring how his presence influenced entire hospital wings. It's like he creates a field of healing possibility, Dr. Chen explained, showing heat maps of recovery rates, where hope becomes a measurable force. The tiny puppy with mismatched eyes had somehow quantified what mystics had spoken of for millennia. The tangible power of love to transform. Sophie's case had become the gold standard for studying Max's abilities. Her detailed descriptions of his guidance through consciousness, providing frameworks for understanding similar cases. He doesn't just heal you, she told the doctors, he shows you how to participate in your own healing. Max's different colored eyes seemed to glow with additional warmth when she spoke, as if confirming the partnership between healer and Healed Us. The day drew to a close. Dr. Chen presented the future implications of their research. "We're not just witnessing a medical breakthrough," he said. "We're seeing the emergence of a new understanding of healing itself." Photos of Max's glowing eyes filled the screens behind him, where science and mystery meet, where love becomes medicine, where a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes can remind us that some healing transcends everything we thought we knew. Sarah gathered Max in her arms as the standing ovation filled the auditorium. The tiny puppy who had once been abandoned in a cardboard box had transformed not just individual lives, but the very future of medicine. His different colored eyes glowing with quiet joy as Sophie joined them on stage. The three of them standing together as living proof that some miracles come with pause, some wisdom comes with fur, and some revolutions in healing begin with a puppy whose mismatched eyes could see both the wounds that needed healing and the light that showed the way home. The day of Sophie's official discharge dawned bright and clear. Max seemed to know the significance of the morning, his mismatched eyes glowing with special intensity as Sarah helped him into his therapy vest, now adorned with official medical credentials. And the countless pins and honors he had received from hospitals around the world. The tiny puppy who had changed everything had one more milestone to witness. Sophie waited in her room surrounded by balloons and cards, her recovery so complete that new patients often couldn't believe she was the same girl from the case studies the medical team had gathered for the final checks. Dr. Chen, leading the procession, his eyes suspiciously bright as he reviewed her perfect test results. "Medically speaking," he announced, "this is more than a recovery. It's a revolution in what we thought possible." Max trotted into the room, his different colored eyes immediately finding Sophie's face, their special connection visible in the way both their expressions lit up at the sight of each other. "There's my angel," Sophie called, holding out her arms. The tiny puppy who had guided her from darkness, leaping effortlessly into her embrace, his brown eye warm with earthly joy, his blue eye bright with celestial triumph. "Remember when they laughed?" Maria Parker whispered to Sarah, watching her daughter hold the puppy who had saved her when he first wobbled into the room. Sarah nodded, remembering how the medical staff had chuckled at the tiny, determined puppy, not knowing they were witnessing the beginning of something that would transform their understanding of healing. Dr. Chen had brought the final brain scans showing patterns that still amazed the medical community. Complete neural regeneration, he explained, pathways we didn't even know could be restored. Sophie smiled at Max as if they shared a secret. "His eyes showed me the way," she said simply. "One to see where I was, one to see where I could be." The tiny puppy's tail wagged in confirmation. The hospital staff had gathered in the corridors, creating an impromptu honor guard for Sophie's departure nurses who had watched the miracle unfold. Doctors who had learned to believe in magic that wore fur, technicians whose instruments had recorded the impossible, all wanting to witness this moment. Max walked beside Sophie's wheelchair, his presence still creating that special hush that followed him everywhere. "Wait," Sophie said, as they reached the hospital lobby where reporters had gathered. To document the milestone, she stood up from the wheelchair, demonstrating her complete recovery, and knelt beside Max, taking his tiny face in her hands. "Thank you," she whispered, her tears falling into his fur, "for finding me in the dark, for showing me the way home, for teaching everyone that love is the strongest medicine." Max's different colored eyes glowed with unprecedented brightness, as if reflecting the magnitude of the moment, his brown eye holding all the warmth of earthly love, his blue eye shining with celestial wisdom, both focused entirely on Sophie as she hugged him, the cameras flashing around them, capturing what Dr. Chen would later call the pure essence of healing. Sarah watched as her tiny shelter puppy stood steady and proud beside Sophie, while Dr. Chen addressed the media. "What we've witnessed here," he said, "goes beyond medical science, beyond what we thought possible. It shows us that healing comes in many forms, sometimes with fur and different colored eyes. Max's tail wagged gently, acknowledging his role in changing the future of medicine. Sophie had prepared her own statement, reading it clear and strong, her voice carrying the authority of one who had journeyed through darkness and found light. Max didn't just heal my body, she told the assembled reporters. He showed all of us that miracles don't have to be mysterious. They can come with paws and fur and eyes that see both where we are and where we can be. The ceremony continued with presentations from various medical organizations commemorating Max's contributions. Sophie stood proudly beside him, both of them somehow knowing this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. The tiny puppy's mission expanding beyond individual healing to changing how the world understood recovery. He makes miracles look natural, one doctor observed, watching Max accept the honors with gentle dignity. Maria and David Parker presented Sarah with a special locket containing photos of Max's eyes, one brown, one blue. So we'll always remember, Maria said through tears, that sometimes angels have fur and healing comes with paws. Sarah fastened it around her neck, watching as Max's actual eyes glowed with joy, his tiny presence filling the lobby with that special energy that had become his signature. The former patients had come to witness the occasion, each sharing stories of how Max had touched their lives, changed their recovery, transformed their understanding of healing. The tiny puppy acknowledged each testimony with gentle dignity, his different colored eyes meeting each person's gaze with the same extraordinary awareness that had marked him from the beginning. Dr. Chen presented the final statistics. Sophie's case had inspired research projects in hospitals worldwide, the Max protocol becoming standard treatment for consciousness disorders, but numbers can't capture what we've really learned, he admitted, watching Sophie and Max together about the power of love to heal, about the wisdom that can come with fur, about the miracles that look like puppies. Sophie knelt beside Max one last time before leaving the hospital that had been their battlefield and victory ground. Both, "You know what I love most about our story?" she asked. Him, her fingers gentle in his fur, his mismatched eyes glowing with understanding that it's not just about me getting better. It's about showing everyone that hope has four paws and love has special eyes. The hospital board had created a permanent position for Max, establishing a new department dedicated to what they called integrative consciousness healing. But everyone knew no research, no protocol, no program could fully capture what the tiny puppy with mismatched eyes had shown them. About the true nature of healing, the profound power of love to light even the darkest paths, as Sophie walked out of the hospital under her own power, Max trotting proudly beside her. Sarah remembered the shelter worker's words about his unusual eyes. "Some animals see more than we know," she had said, and now watching the tiny puppy who had transformed not just Sophie's life, but the entire medical community's understanding of healing, Sarah understood that some miracles choose us, some angels wear fur, and some revolutions in healing come with paws and mismatched eyes that see both the wounds that need healing and the light that shows the way. Home. Max's different colored eyes glowed one final time as they stepped into the sunlight. His brown eye holding all the warmth of earthly love, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom, both focused on the future they had helped create, where healing knows no boundaries, where love wears fur, where miracles have paws, and where a tiny puppy with special eyes could remind the world that sometimes the greatest healing comes through hearts that see both what is and what can be, both where we hurt and where we can heal, both the darkness we fear and the light that leads us home. 6 months after Sophie's discharge, the Children's Hospital had transformed beyond recognition. Max's new department occupied an entire wing. its walls painted with murals of different colored eyes and paw prints. The tiny puppy who had started a revolution now led a team of specially selected therapy dogs, though none shared his extraordinary abilities. His mismatched eyes, still unique in their power to bridge worlds. It's not just about the medical outcomes anymore, Dr. Chen explained to a new group of resident physicians as they watched Max work with a young patient, his different colored eyes glowing with gentle purpose. It's about understanding that healing happens on multiple levels. The tiny puppy demonstrated this truth. Daily, his presence transforming traditional treatment into something that touched both body and souls. ERA had established a training program for what they now called consciousness companion animals, though she always reminded new handlers that Max was something special. "We can teach the techniques," she would say, watching him guide another patient toward healing. But his gift, his eyes, his ability to see beyond, that's something unique. Max's tail would wag gently at these words, his mismatched eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom. Sophia visited regularly. Now a student volunteer in the program, she had inspired her story. Encouraging other patients, her presence proving that miracles could wear. Fur and healing could come with pause. Watch. His eyes, she would tell new patients, the brown one sees where you hurt, the blue one sees where you're going. Max would sit quietly beside her, his different colored eyes confirming her words with their gentle glow. The medical community had fully embraced what they called the Max method, incorporating his proven techniques into standard treatment protocols. Hospitals worldwide had created spaces that mimicked the healing environment he naturally generated, but it's never quite the same. One doctor admitted watching Max work, there's something about those eyes, something about his presence that we just can't replicate. Research continued documenting every aspect of Max's work, his different colored eyes still defying complete scientific explanation. The brown eye operates at frequencies associated with current physical states, Dr. Chen would explain, while the blue eye somehow resonates with potential recovery states, but the tiny puppy simply continued his work, unconcerned with the theories that swirled around him. Maria Parker had started a foundation dedicated to expanding access to animal-assisted healing programs. "Max showed us what's possible," she would say at fundraising events, the tiny puppy always beside her, his mismatched eyes somehow making skeptical donors reach for their checkbooks. He reminded us that sometimes the most powerful medicine comes with fur and love. The hospital's success rates had soared, particularly in cases involving consciousness and neural recovery, Max's influence extending beyond his direct interactions, creating what the staff called the Max effect, where even patients who never met him directly seemed to benefit from the healing environment he had helped establish, his different colored eyes having literally changed how the hospital approached recovery. De Morgan now led international conferences on consciousness, assisted healing, her presentations always featuring videos of Max at work. "Watch the eyes," she would tell audiences, "see how they change luminescence according to each patient's needs." Medical professionals would lean forward fascinated as the tiny puppy's brown eye glowed with earthly comfort, his blue eye bright with celestial guidance. Sarah had noticed changes in Max too, his abilities seeming to grow stronger, more refined, with each passing month, his different colored eyes now capable of producing specific frequencies for different types of healing. "It's like he's teaching us," she told Dr. Chen, showing us more and more of what's possible. The tiny puppy's tail would wag gently at these observations, his mission continuously evolving. The children's ward had become a place of extraordinary hope, parents sharing stories of recovery that defied medical explanation, nurses documenting cases where Max's presence had turned dire predictions into miracle recoveries. His mismatched eyes somehow knowing exactly who needed him most, when they needed him most, how they needed him most. Sophie's case study had become required reading in medical schools worldwide. Her description of Max's guidance through consciousness, revolutionizing how doctors approached coma recovery. He doesn't just heal you. She would explain to medical students, he shows you how to participate in your own healing. Max would sit beside her during these presentations, his different colored eyes glowing with quiet pride. The hospital board had created a new position, Director of Integrative Consciousness, Healing. Though everyone knew the real director was a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes who had transformed their understanding of what healing could be, Max carried his responsibilities with characteristic grace, his presence still creating that special hush that followed him through the corridors. Other hospitals had begun reporting similar phenomena, where animals seemed to develop enhanced healing abilities after exposure to Max's techniques. He's awakening something, Dr. Chen theorized, reminding other animals of abilities they've always had. But no other animal demonstrated Max's extraordinary combination of different colored eyes and healing power. His gift remaining unique even as his influence spread, Sarah often found herself watching Max work, marveling at how the tiny puppy she had discovered in a shelter had become a revolutionary force in modern medicine, his brown eye glowing with earthly comfort, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom, both focused entirely on each patient he encountered, his presence somehow making the impossible seem natural. The miraculous seem every day. The research team had documented thousands of cases, now each adding to their understanding of how Max's healing worked. But understanding, it doesn't diminish the miracle, Dr. Morgan would say, watching the tiny puppy guide another patient toward recovery. It just helps us appreciate how extraordinary this gift really is. Max's different colored eyes would glow gently at such moments, as if acknowledging both the science and the mystery of his work. Hospital staff had learned to watch for the special glow in Max's eyes that indicated breakthrough moments, his brown eye warming like amber, his blue eye brightening like summer sky, both combining to create what they called the healing light. Though no instruments could fully capture the phenomenon, its effects were undeniable, its impact revolutionary, its presence transforming modern medicine's understanding of recovery. As another day drew to a close, Sarah watched Max make his final rounds, the tiny puppy who had once been left in a cardboard box, now leading a revolution in healing, his different colored eyes still glowing with purpose, still seeing both what was and what could be, still bridging the gap between science and miracle, between medicine and magic, between the wounds that needed healing and the light that showed the way home. And through it all, Max remained somehow both extraordinary and completely natural, his mismatched eyes both gift and guide, both miracle and method, both science and soul, his presence reminding everyone who witnessed his work that some healing comes through love, some revolutions wear fur, some miracles have paws, and some angels come with different colored eyes that see both the darkness we fear and the light that leads us home. 1 year after Sophie's miraculous recovery, the hospital hosted its first international conference on consciousness companion healing, bringing together medical professionals, animal behaviorists, and therapy teams from around the world. Max sat beside Sarah on the main stage, his mismatched eyes glowing with quiet pride as speakers shared stories of how his pioneering work had inspired global changes in medical treatment. We've identified 17 new therapy animal training programs, directly inspired by the Max Protocol, Dr. Chen announced, showing a world map dotted with points of light, each adapting his methods to their unique environments. Though everyone knew no other animal had matched Max's extraordinary abilities, his different colored eyes remaining unique in their power to bridge the gap between current condition and potential healing. Sophie, now a regular speaker at medical conferences, stood to present her latest research on patient experiences. It's not just about the physical healing anymore," she explained as Max's tail wagged gently in agreement. "It's about showing people that recovery has many paths, some of them marked by pause." The audience laughed softly, watching the tiny puppy's brown eye glow with earthly warmth, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom. The Parker Foundation had expanded beyond its original scope, now funding research into animal-assisted healing worldwide. Maria Parker watched from the front row as teams presented their findings. "Max showed us the way," she said quietly, "but he also showed us that every animal has the potential to help heal in their own unique way." Sarah nodded, remembering how it had all started with a shelter puppy's different colored eyes. Dr. Morgan's research team had documented what they called the ripple effect, showing how hospitals that implemented Max-inspired programs saw improvements even in departments not directly involved with animal therapy. "It's like he created a blueprint for hope," she explained, and displaying charts of recovery rates, showing us that healing can spread through an entire system. Max's department had grown to include a training center where handlers and animals came to learn what they could of his methods, the tiny puppy often sitting in on sessions, his mismatched eyes watching, as others worked to understand the bridge between science and soul, between medicine and miracle. "He's still teaching us," Sarah would say, watching him guide new teams with gentle patience. Sophie had developed a special program for young patients, helping them understand how to work with therapy animals. "Remember," she would tell them, "Max's brown eye sees where you are, his blue eye sees where you're going." The children would nod solemnly, watching the tiny puppy demonstrate his healing presence, his different colored eyes glowing with understanding. The medical community had begun incorporating Max's techniques into standard treatment protocols. Hospitals worldwide creating what they called healing spaces, designed to amplify the natural therapeutic presence that Max generated so effortlessly. "But there's still something special about him," Dr. Chen admitted, watching the tiny puppy work. "Something in those eyes that we're still trying to understand." Research continues to document new aspects of Max's abilities. His different colored eyes, now showing subtle variations in luminescence that corresponded to specific types of healing needed. "It's like he's becoming more refined in his work," Sarah observed, "more precise in how he applies his gift." The tiny puppy's tail would wag gently at such observations. His mission, continuously evolving, the children's ward had transformed into a model of integrative healing, young patients working with therapy animals, inspired by Max's example. Though none could quite match his extraordinary connection, his mismatched eyes, still unique in their ability to see both current needs and future possibilities. He opened the door. One nurse explained, showed us what was possible. Sarah had established a certification program for what they now called consciousness companion animals, though she always began each class by explaining that Max was something special. "We can teach the techniques," she would say, as the tiny puppy demonstrated his gentle wisdom. "But his gift, his eyes, his ability to see beyond, that's something unique to him." Other hospitals reported increasing success with their own therapy animal programs, each adapting Max's methods to their specific needs. "He showed us the framework," Dr. Morgan explained at a panel discussion, "but he also showed us that each healing relationship is unique." Max sat quietly beside her, his different colored eyes glowing with approval. As others built upon his pioneering work, the Parker Foundation had begun offering scholarships for studies in animal-assisted healing. Sophie, often serving on the selection committee, "We're looking for people who understand what Max taught us." She would explain that sometimes the most powerful medicine comes with fur and love. The tiny puppy's tail would wag gently at her words, his mission expanding through each new generation of healers. Max's influence had spread beyond traditional medical settings, reaching into rehabilitation centers, nursing homes, and trauma recovery programs. his different colored eyes having inspired a new understanding of how healing could work. He reminded us that recovery isn't just about the body, one therapist observed. It's about reaching the whole person. Sarah had noticed how Max seemed to take special interest in training sessions involving young animals, his mismatched eyes watching carefully as new therapy dogs learned their roles. It's like he's passing on his wisdom, she told Dr. Chen, preparing the next generation. The tiny puppy's tail would wag in confirmation, his mission extending beyond his own direct work, the hospital. Board had created a research fellowship in Max's name funding studies into the connection between consciousness and healing. He showed us there was more to medicine than we thought, the chief of staff explained, watching Max work with a new patient, his different colored eyes glowing with their special light. He opened our eyes to possibilities we hadn't imagined. Sophie's regular visits now included teaching sessions where she helped new patients understand how to work with therapy animals. Max taught me that healing is a partnership, she would explain, as the tiny puppy demonstrated his gentle presence between medicine and miracle, between science and soul, between what is and what can be. As the conference drew to a close, Sarah watched Max make his rounds through the gathering, his different colored eyes glowing with quiet purpose, his presence still creating that special hush that followed him everywhere, the tiny puppy who had started a revolution in healing continuing. To show the world that some miracles come with paws, some wisdom comes with fur, and some transformations begin with eyes that see both the wounds that need healing and the light that shows the way. Home Dr. Chen's closing remarks captured what everyone had learned from Max's example. He didn't just show us a new way to heal, he said, watching the tiny puppy's mismatched eyes glow with gentle wisdom. He showed us that healing itself is more extraordinary than we imagined, that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come with fur, that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes with paws, and that sometimes the most powerful healing comes through eyes that can see both where we are and where we can be. On the second anniversary of Sophie's recovery, the Children's Hospital garden bloomed with spring flowers as hundreds gathered to celebrate the inauguration of the Max Center for Integrative Healing. The tiny puppy with mismatched eyes sat beside Sarah on the presentation stage, his presence still creating that special hush that had marked his first miraculous moments in Sophie's room. 2 years ago, Dr. Chen began addressing the assembled crowd. We witnessed something that changed everything we thought we knew about healing. Max's different colored eyes glowed gently in the morning light, one brown and warm with earthly love, one blue and bright with celestial wisdom. Both focused on Sophie as she sat in the front row, no longer a patient, but a pioneer in the revolution she and Max had started. The center represented everything they had learned from Max's extraordinary journey. 5 stories of healing spaces designed to amplify the natural therapeutic presence he had shown them was possible. But the building is just the beginning, Sarah explained as Max's tail wagged in gentle agreement. What matters is the spirit of healing he taught us to recognize. The tiny puppy's eyes seemed to glow brighter at her words. Sophie now, a certified therapy animal specialist, stood to share her perspective. Max didn't just save my life, she told the gathering, her voice strong and clear. He showed us all that miracles don't have to be mysterious. They can come with fur and paws, and eyes that see both where we are and where we can be. Max's different colored eyes met hers in that special way they had, sharing a connection that transcended ordinary understanding. The medical community had fully embraced what they now called consciousness-integrated healing, with Max's methods being taught in medical schools worldwide. He revolutionized our understanding, Dr. Morgan explained, watching the tiny puppy demonstrate his gentle wisdom for a new group of therapy animals. Showed us that healing involves both science and soul. Max's tail wagged softly. His mission continuously evolving. Maria and David Parker had witnessed their daughter's miracle become a global movement, the foundation they started in Max's name. Now, supporting research and programs on every continent, he gave us back our daughter, Maria said, touching the locket containing photos of Max's different colored eyes. But he also gave the world a new way to think about healing, Sarah remembered. Finding Max in that shelter, his unique eyes catching her attention, his extraordinary destiny yet unknown. Some animals choose us, she told the audience, because they see something we need to learn. The tiny puppy looked up at her, his brown eye warm with earthly understanding, his blue eye bright with celestial purpose, both containing wisdom that had transformed modern medicine. The center would house new research programs, training facilities, and treatment spaces, all inspired by Max's pioneering work, but its heart was a special garden designed to capture the peaceful energy he naturally created. Some healing happens in the spaces between, Dr. Chen explained. In the quiet moments, Max showed us how to recognize the tiny puppy's tail wagged in confirmation. Sophie had helped design the children's wing, incorporating elements from her own experience. Each room has windows positioned so patients can see both earth and sky, she explained, just like Max's eyes showing us both where we are and where we can go. The tiny puppy's different colored eyes glowed with approval. His presence still making the impossible seem natural. The medical staff had learned to watch for what they called the Max moment, when his eyes would glow with special intensity, signaling breakthrough in a patient's recovery. He taught us to see healing differently, one nurse explained, to recognize the bridge between what is and what can be. Max's tail wagged gently, his mission now extending far beyond individual patients. Research continued documenting new aspects of his abilities. But everyone understood that some things transcended scientific explanation. His gift isn't just in his eyes, Dr. Morgan observed, watching Max work with a young patient. It's in his heart, in his presence, in his ability to remind us that love is the strongest medicine. The tiny puppy's different colored eyes glowed with quiet agreement. The center would carry forward Max's legacy, training new generations of therapy animals and handlers, though everyone knew his particular combination of gifts would remain unique. He opened the door, Sarah explained, showed us what was possible, but each animal brings their own special way of helping. Max's tail wagged as if confirming that healing could take many forms. Sophie's regular sessions with young patients now included teaching them about the different ways animals could help heal. Max showed us that sometimes angels have fur, she would tell them, watching the tiny puppy demonstrate his gentle presence, and sometimes miracles come with paws. Max's mismatched eyes would glow with joy as new connections formed. New healing began as the ceremony continued. Sarah watched Max make his rounds through the crowd, his different colored eyes glowing with purpose, his presence still creating miracles, still showing them that healing could transcend ordinary understanding, still bridging the gap between science and soul, between medicine and magic, between what was and what could be. Chen's closing remarks captured the essence of what Max had taught them all. He didn't just change medicine, he said, watching the tiny puppy's eyes glow with gentle wisdom. He reminded us that healing is about more than curing. It's about connecting, about believing, about seeing both the wounds that need healing and the light that shows the way home. The center would stand as testament to a revolution in healing that began with a tiny puppy with mismatched eyes who showed the world that some miracles wear fur, some wisdom comes with paws. Some angels have different colored eyes, and some healing transcends everything. We think we know about the power of love to transform darkness into light. As the sun set on the celebration, Sarah knelt beside Max, watching his different colored eyes glow with quiet satisfaction. "You knew, didn't you?" she whispered, scratching behind his ears. From that first day in the shelter, you knew what you were meant to do. The tiny puppy's tail wagged gently, his brown eye warm with earthly love, his blue eye bright with celestial wisdom. Both containing the truth he had shown them all, Sophie joined them in the garden that would now welcome new patients, seeking hope. "You know what I love most about our story?" she asked Max. Her fingers gentle in his fur, his mismatched eyes, meeting hers with understanding that it's not just about me getting better, it's about showing everyone that healing has no boundaries, that love finds a way, that sometimes the greatest miracles come with fur and paws and eyes that see both where we are and where we can be. And as stars began to appear in the evening sky, Max sat between them, his presence still extraordinary, still miraculous, still somehow completely natural. The tiny puppy who had changed everything, his different colored eyes glowing with the wisdom of both worlds, his heart beating with the rhythm of healing his soul, showing them all that some stories don't end. They simply change, becoming bridges for other hearts to cross, becoming light for other souls to follow, becoming proof that love, especially when it comes with fur and paws and eyes that see beyond ordinary sight, has the power to transform not just bodies but souls, not just moments but lives, not just medicine, but the very way we understand what it means to heal and be healed.